Hey, what's going on, guys? 0 hour back. Tim Lloyd, joined by my guy, Cody Saftic, and we are here to break down the betting odds for this upcoming Friday's Aries Fight Series 20. And of course, 0 hour brought to you by Smoky Mountain CBD. Check them out at SmokyMountainCBD.com. They hook up all our VIPs with some real nice swag bags. All of your dank favorites with the CBD, the Delta 8, Delta 9. Keep you feeling good. We appreciate them. And Cody, how's it going, my man? We doing all right? It was good seeing you in Nashville, of course, at the big underground show. You flew down, got to hang out with you for a few days, had some good fights, went to the UFC, and had a nice time.
Yeah, man, had a really good time. And then woke up, dragged my ass over to the airport. But thankfully, I had my Smoky Mountain CBD gummies, passed out,
Hey,
woke
nice.
up in my own bed. So I can't complain, man. I had a really good weekend. And then thanks for inviting me on the show because I've experienced the big show at the Nashville Fairgrounds, right? We've experienced that real grungy feel at the
Mhm.
Nashville Underground. But the Cotton Eye Joe, everyone tells me there's like a real special vibe with the Joe. So I would like to make it out there one of these days. But for now, happy to break down the pro portion of the card.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Of course, goes down at the world famous Cotton Eye Joe this Friday night. That's August the 11th, and you get your tickets at fightertix.com, and of course, the pay per view will be available at Spectation Sports. And today we're going to go over the betting odds brought to you by BetMGM. We have 5 pro bouts on the card, and we're going to get it. We'll just jump on into it, Cody. Of course, first I'll preface it with this. Some really high level, big record guys fought this past weekend in Nashville. This card is not the same type setup here. We got a lot more entry level people. We've got some records that aren't necessarily the shiniest, but this is going to be one of those shows where people are either beginning their pro journey, or some guys that have had some L's early in their career are going to have a chance to get things turned around. And I still think we're in for some really nice fights. We'll start it off with our opening pro bout. Of course, this will be a lightweight bout. All these set for 3 5-minute rounds. It's going to be Jellicoe Mike Douglas, and he is the favorite here, minus 300, as he takes on Thomas Grady, who comes back at plus 250. The total on this and most of these, except for 1.5 rounds, the over set at plus 175, the under at minus 200. Mike Douglas training out of the Shield Systems team in Knoxville there with his teammate will be in the main event a little bit later, Alex Riggs. Also teammates with Scott Holtzman, Demir Fabagovich, and that crew over there. Formerly used to train up in Corbin, Kentucky, actually, where he had most of his fights have been on the Kentucky scene. He has had a rough start to his career, 0-4, but pretty difficult level of schedule, I would say, through those first 4 fights. No one's really done him any favors. So this will be his first time fighting with us. I'm excited to see, what he brings to the table. He has fought for me as an amateur several years back, and he's solid. He had a pretty long amateur career with several titles and whatnot. So looking for professional. This will be our first time seeing Mr. Grady on an event. However, he has fought on the Spectation platform in the past for other promotions. He is training over at Athens BJJ down the road in Athens, Tennessee. It's about halfway between Knoxville and Chattanooga. So somebody's going to get their first win here at the Joe Friday. Cody, I'm excited to get your take on this one. Do you think the odds are about right, or what's your lean here?
Yeah, so I'll tell you something. When you look at last week's card, it's very easy to say, geez, you got Chris Ocon. Here's a UFC Dana White Contender Series veteran, guy that's fought for
Mm-hmm.
Kombache, a guy that's fought for LFA. He's kind of been there, done that. Oh, we got Dedrick Sanders. Dedrick Sanders is on a 4-fight winning streak. He's been there. Torrance Finney, undefeated prospect. Those guys you can get a much better read on because there's a lot of tape available. There's a lot of where they're training at, where they're active on social media, kind of their story. But when you look at these shows like the Joe, when you look at a lot of guys that are, 0-0, 0-1, in this case, you have an 0-4 versus an 0-2, to give a minus 300 price tag is it is a little bit tough. It's a little bit tough. Even if you liked him, there's obviously a lot of glaring red flags here. This is a positive version of someone's has got to go because somebody is going to pick up the victory. we just got to figure out who's it going to be. When I look at Michael Douglas is a big body. He's a big guy for 155 pounds, stands 6 feet tall, definitely moves good, and he's an offensive dynamo. He likes to go out there, he likes to pressure his opponents, and he likes to throw. The problem is that the durability just doesn't seem to be able to keep up to what he wants to do offensively. He's oftentimes in a lot of firefights, close fights, until he eventually just gets caught. Now, this is not a guy that's simply just 0-4. He was a solid amateur. He won his last 6 amateur fights before turning pro. Unfortunately, like you said, the results just haven't been there against a tough level of competition. When you do look at him, though, the vast majority of his amateur fights end within a round, maybe a round and a half, but because it's an amateur fight, they're only 3-minute rounds. It's less than 5 minutes of cage time. When you look at his pro career, it kind of does mirror that. I mean, his pro debut knocked out in the first round, doctor stoppage first round. Second pro fight, knocked out a minute 40 into the second round. Third pro fight, 2 minutes into the first round. And that last one against Ilmaz Mamadaliev, 4 minutes, 43 seconds into the first round. I thought he looked good in that fight. Again, an athletic fighter, good size, moves well, landing plenty of good shots. And then it's like as soon as that tight little right hand lands, he loses equilibrium, falls over, end of the fight. So minus 300, not saying he doesn't have the skills to win this. And again, when you do look the tape on it, it looks like he probably is the better fighter. Minus 300, it's a little bit tough considering he's been knocked out in all 4 of his pro losses, and generally he doesn't get it past 5 minutes. Now, why that's good for Thomas Grady? Because again, Thomas Grady seems to be slower. He seems to be a little bit undersized, even though he's fought at the higher weight classes. It just seems like it probably won't go well for him. The couple things he does got going for his favor is that he's a military man. He never actually started training MMA until 2019. So he's one of these tough, rugged guys that's seen battle, has a pretty solid mindset, and is still kind of fairly new in the game. So you can watch tape on him, but you're not realizing that's him with 2 years training. So him with 5 years training should be a lot better. The other thing is that he's rugged and he's durable. His 2 pro losses, he went to decision with Tanner Chambers, who's pretty good. And then he lost a 3rd-round submission against Noah Lindsay, who was undefeated 3-0. Not only that, he's got enough confidence that he's booked himself another pro fight 3 weeks after this one. So part of me thinks that this could be all one-way traffic for Michael Douglas. He's looking good. He's landing his shots. He's moving well. And then Grady just stays in the fight long enough to land that fight-changing punch. And at that point, he makes it happen, right? He's also not bad on the ground. I would say his takedown defense is definitely not up to snuff. But if he can make his opponent work, tire him out, and kind of force his hand, he could definitely make it. Like, I would say he's a live underdog simply because of that number associated with it. But if you want to play the safe route, I'd take the under 1.5 at minus 200. I believe that's what it is. Maybe there wasn't an over and under here. It was. Okay, yeah. The over under 1.5 at minus 200. Again, you've got 2 guys that are going to go out there, put on a show for the defensive lapses that Michael Douglas has. He makes up for it in offense. So he, to me, seems like all of his amateur wins, again, quick finishes, victories, and then as a pro, he's been suffering these quick finish losses. So to think that he's going to fight 7.5 minutes when he's never done so at any point, probably not going to happen. So I would attack that over or that under 1.5. And then in terms of a straight pick, maybe like the smallest sprinkle on a Thomas Grady just because of the number. But I could see it being a fight that could go either way, really.
Yeah, and what's kind of interesting here is BetMGM is will allow you to parlay. The options have been limited, I think, with them just kind of diving into regional MMA. So hopefully we see those open up a little bit where they're putting a few more options on the board. But as far as totals or props go, but all the same, pretty rare you would get an opportunity to even get a number on pros. With these type of records early on. So I thought this would be an interesting show because of that, because there may be some potential jewels for those that dig hard enough. Let's move on to the next bout. This will be a middleweight contest set for 185 pounds. Once again, 3 5-minute rounds. It's going to be the 0-1 Paul Carson. He's minus 175, so he's the favorite here, taking on the 0-2 Dijon Farrell Francis. Fair play, his alter ego on the street beefs, if you will. Both these guys, again, looking for their first win. Paul Carson training with the bunch over there at Jim O in Gastonia, North Carolina. He's managed by Scott Holtzman, who has been my liaison on this one. Scott sees something there. He's definitely trying to bring this guy along, and he was actually looking for his pro debut with us. We couldn't ever make anything happen for that, and so he ended up getting his pro debut up in Virginia instead. It took a loss there, so he's looking for that first win, taking on Farrell Francis. We'll call him fair play from here. I will anyway. 0-2 out of Elizabeth, New Jersey. Looks like he's got some boxing as well, and looks both these guys look to be in really good shape. This is kind of for an 0-2 versus a 0-1, I actually expect this fight to be, at least aesthetically, both these guys, I expect them to come in looking good.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I see what Scott Holtzman sees in Paul Carson. I think he looks like he could be a legitimate prospect. He's still only 25 years old, but he's a very athletic kid. He wrestled at Appalachian State
Mm.
University. He was a three-time starter on the team, Division One level school. So he most definitely knows how to wrestle, and he's very comfortable. Was also a standout wrestler in high school, a long lineage there. So now he turns amateur, and right off the get-go, it's like he uses that wrestling as a prowess. I mean, still figuring out jiu-jitsu. His top game isn't exactly established yet. He'll get the takedown and then sometimes just allow his opponents to switch position or maybe hit a sweep or hit an escape. But I think he's still raw. I think that there's something there that you could work with. Thing is that he smashes both of his amateur opponents relatively quickly. I don't know that he really got to get tested all that much. I didn't have to see him go through any adversity. I haven't seen him on his back. I haven't seen him really get hit at any point. So I don't know that they rushed him, and maybe he's got way more than 2 amateur fights. This is just what I can see off Tapology,
Mm.
but he turns pro and, yeah, suffers a pro loss in 16 seconds. I can't find that fight. Tried to find that fight, can't find that fight. So I don't know if he got kneed up the middle. I don't know if he got clipped by something. I don't know if it was just clean shot that hit him, never saw it coming. I don't know what the circumstances of it is, but without seeing it, I can't really judge his durability.
Mm.
So the question here is, does he have cardio? Can he fight 5 rounds or can he fight 5 minutes? Can he fight 15 minutes? And what's that durability like? Because when you look at Fair Play Francis, he's definitely a striker. Hasn't had a whole lot of success in pro boxing, hasn't had a whole lot of success in his pro MMA career, but again, durable. Like he's not getting finished
Mm.
quickly. He's a guy that generally can bank in a couple rounds. And of course, he does have the striking edge. He's very quirky. He's got a quick little side kick. He's hard to get a beat off. And I think that might be the one problem for Paul Carson. He should go in there, get the takedown, not with relative ease, but easy enough. And then at that point, it's like, am I going to get a first round finish? Because if I don't get a first round finish, these takedowns are going to start becoming labored. We're going to have to spend more time standing. Can he take the shots? Couldn't take it last fight. Don't know the circumstances of that one, but couldn't take it the last time. Now he's taking on a credible enough striker that hits decently hard. Could become greasy the longer this thing goes. But if you're looking at striker versus grappler, more often than not, grappler's going to win. I think Paul Carson is a legitimate prospect. Bad loss in his debut. Happened to Isaiah Hoka in Bellator as well. You can get back to the drawing board and head in the right direction. And of course, having Jimmo behind him, having Scott Holtzman behind him, he's in really good hands. I'm hoping that loss is just going to make him a better fighter going forward. So I do have Paul Carson to probably take him down, control him, put him in some bad spots, and hopefully at some point hit a submission sooner rather than later, because I would hate to see him get tired and then get hit with something standing. But again, this is a really fun fight because it's the tale of two fights. It's like old school MMA. You got a striker versus grappler, but because they're both in that infant, that beginner stage of their careers, both are prone to making mistakes and falling into the other guy's trap. Carson doesn't want to strike, but if he gasses out and he can't get those takedowns, he's going to be forced to. And Francis don't want to go to the ground.
Mm.
When you're taking on a powerhouse like Carson, you might not have a choice. So I like this fight from a matchmaking standpoint, but I'm going to have to side with the favorite. As far as the over-under goes, I'm actually thinking the over, and I know that it's been lying closer to that way. The over 1.5 is minus 150. I
Mm.
feel like we've seen enough out of Francis. He's durable enough that hopefully he can just survive that over 7.5 minutes. And at that point, it's up to Carson. So you mentioned that for the records, these guys are going to get in the cage and it's going to be like, damn, these guys are in really good shape. I agree. They're a lot better than their records suggest. And I think they're going to fight hard, hopefully hit that 7.5 minute mark so we can hit the over on it. But in terms of the straight pick, I would have to go Paul Carson because of the wrestling edge.
Up next, we have our only female pro bout on the card, and this is going to be the pro debut of the Mare Bear, Mary Rosenbeck. She's the largest favorite on the card, minus 1,000 here, 10-1 on Mary Rosenbeck. She takes on the 0-3 Hannah Rosario, who comes back a nice chunk plus 800. The total on this one is our only 2.5. Everything else is 1.5. So this one's over 2.5 is juiced minus 150. Under is plus 125. Mary, the former Aries amateur featherweight champ. And so she's coming in with some momentum. Has been looking forward to her pro debut here for quite some time. And of course, Hannah Rosario, longtime vet at the scene. She's been around for, man, a decade now, maybe at this point, in a really long time. Had a lot of amateur fights. Has taken on a fairly tough mix of pro girls in her pro career thus far. So she's looking for that first win here against Mary Rosenbeck. And yeah, interested to get your take on this one. Is this one lined too heavy? You think, for a female fight? I know that females can oftentimes, as they say, shit in the apple pie.
Yeah, most definitely. It's definitely a tough weight class. Women's MMA, any of the weight classes, you're always going to see these upsets sprung. So 100% worth looking into. When I look at Mare Bear, though, I like her, man. She's a fan favorite for a reason.
Yeah.
She's really hardworking. Like, she goes in there, she gives it her absolute all, and I got a feeling that when she trains in the training room, it's much of the same. She's giving it her 100% effort, and you can see that progression throughout the course of her career. She actually starts off her amateur career 0-4, if you can believe that, and then through hard work, goes on one hell of a run and ends up finishing 7-1 before making this pro debut now. She had lost to this Chloe Padilla as an amateur, right? But comes back, wins that fight, gets revenge. She won Samantha Buttery. It's a split decision win. So she comes back at Aries 18 and makes it that much more definitive. Gets the 5th round stoppage. Again, that's somebody making the improvements. I lost to an opponent. I went back to the drawing board. I corrected my mistakes and I went back out there. She's still only 26 years old, and she's actually a good sized featherweight, with not a lot of times you'll see bantamweights jumping up, which I think is exactly what's happening here. Only that's not the case for Mare Bear. She's the natural featherweight. So I think she's got a lot of good stuff going her way. Opponents generally do want to take her down, but of course, at 5'8" and filling out that 145 frame, it's very difficult to. She's got excellent output. You saw in her last amateur fight before this pro debut at Aries 18, a 5th round stoppage, cardio held out. And because that was a 5-round fight, amateur, so 3-minute rounds, it's essentially 15 minutes, which is what she's going to be fighting in this pro debut. So I think she's equipped to go. It's the right time to turn pro. 26, good team around her. I'm interested in seeing Mare Bear get in there and do her thing. Hannah Elswick, meanwhile, Hannah Elswick's 5'4". She's going to be giving up quite a bit of size as far as I'm concerned. And when you look at the rest of her amateur fights, at 135, she's very much a bantamweight. And Mare Bear's actually fought as high as 155 for one fight. So I think you're going to see a pretty good size discrepancy. If this thing stays standing, I just don't see Elswick winning it. I really don't. She doesn't get the output. She doesn't get the volume. She doesn't get the technique. I think she'll just kind of get battered. Her little path to victory would be if she can trip up Mare Bear, get her to the ground, and kind of take advantage of her grappling a little bit. Because as we've seen, you may not have seen her fight recently, but she competes on the Aries shows in combat jiu-jitsu, a little jiu-jitsu super fight. She's active in grappling. Her grappling's not bad, but in those fights, you never see any wrestling out of her for the most part. So I just don't know. If she doesn't come out here and take Rosenbeck down, she's going to be forced to stand with her. And if that's the case, they don't call her Mare Cub, because she's going to go out there and Mare Maul you. And that's what the Mare Bear is going to do. So I just think the volume, the size, keep the fight standing. 7-1 to end your amateur career. All good stuff for momentum. And of course, she's like, I want to say 6 years younger. So I see why she's a minus 1,000 favorite. I wouldn't disagree with it. I love taking shots on underdogs. Don't get me wrong. I just don't know that I would be able to get there here, even though it's a giant favorite status. I will leave you with this, though. Probably the over, because the over set at 2.5. And again, Rosenbeck just went nearly 5 rounds in her last amateur fight. She does throw a whole lot of volume, but doesn't have a lot of these quick finishes. And with her opponent, Hannah Elswick, she's no walkover by no stretch, right? She's tough. She's actually got a pro boxing debut. Went 4 rounds in that fight.
And she won that one.
Yeah, she won that one. And it was a rematch of a girl that had beaten her as an amateur. So, yeah, there's some good storylines there. And I'm sure she's going to be coming here hungry to get that pro victory as well. And for that reason, she fights her heart out. She makes it competitive and hopefully hits that over. But I still got to go with Mare Bear to get the job done. And ultimately, as a 10-1 favorite, hopefully come through.
Well, at 145 pro female division, that is one of those divisions where you could go run off 2, 3, 4 wins and find yourself with some opportunity, on your plate. So it'd be interesting to see if Mary can start her career out with a win here, get some momentum, and maybe get a crack at Invicta or something like that after a couple more wins. So very likable, both
Mhm.
these ladies, but Mary is definitely a fan favorite. Everybody always get a lot of good vibes when Mary's around. She's very friendly, a very happy person. So we'll move on to our co-main event here. And this is going to be, I guess, the most experience that we've got in any one fight. This is a bantamweight fight, and it's going to be AJ Cisco minus 250 in this one, and representing Rowan Wrestling Academy out of China Grove, North Carolina. He is the coach. He's the head coach there at Rowan Wrestling, and he's going to be taking on old Featherfoot, Dusty Little, guy we've talked about on here several times. Cody, we broke down Dusty before. He's an enigma, I think, to say the least. 2-3, fighting out of North Knox Ishin Room Team NKI. He'll be the local. Uh, Out of Knoxville here. And Dusty's a guy that you know he's got some quirky tools in the bag. If he can utilize them, and people will engage him, and as such, you'll get an entertaining fight out of Dusty, win or lose. To me, it'll be interesting to see if AJ goes to the wrestling here, it goes for that grind style, or if we get some fisticuffs. AJ they kind of called for this one, so I think I don't know how much heat you can actually generate with Dusty Little, but at the very least, I know they want to fight each other. The total here before we get into the breakdown, Cody, is 1.5. We're back to that, and the over 1.5 plus 130, under minus 150.
Yeah, so this is probably going to end up being a terrible pick in hindsight, but I'm going to chase the dog here in Dusty Little. I think that he's got a puncher's chance. I think he's got a grappler's chance. I think he's got a chance to maybe make something happen for himself. And with Cisco, there's just, again, it's a case of the number doesn't reflect potentially what the performance is going to be. Cisco could make this look like he's a minus 10,000 favorite because, as you
Right.
mentioned, he's got the wrestling advantage, he's got the grappling advantage. Chances are he goes out there, scores an easy takedown on Dusty Little, sets up his arm triangle choke. He loves the arm triangle choke, passes off to the side. Dusty's got nowhere to go. Tap, tap, tap. Cisco gets his hand raised. That's the end of it. Nothing more to be seen. But again, this is MMA, and you have to expect the unexpected. So, what is the unexpected? Let's jump at that. People keep saying AJ Cisco's the Big Show veteran. He's the Big Show veteran. He fought for Bellator. But it's important to note, AJ Cisco fought for Bellator, beat Justin Robbins, and then through no fault of his own, he had a cancer diagnosis.
Mm-hmm.
So he took 3 years off after that one Bellator appearance, and then comes back, take one fight with Alan Olivis over in Missouri, and had lost that fight. Then he's coming into this fight with Dusty Little on another 2-year-long gap. So he's effectively had one fight in the last 5 years. It was a fight that he got tired in fairly quickly, got submitted in the second round. So the results aren't quite there. You can't say, oh, he's a Big Show veteran. He's a Big Show veteran 5 years ago, where he had fought for the promotion one time and fought a 42-year-old man on a 4-fight losing streak who's 14-18 overall as a professional. His other wins include Juan Pera, who was 0-3, and Jordan Hernandez, who was 2-15. So he likes to fight guys like Dusty Little because they have terrible records. He'll probably get that quick win. It's not so easy. It's not so easy as picking out a book and picking a guy. You know who did that? Apollo Creed. Oh, Rocky Balboa, Italian Stallion. I'll fight him. Turns out you got a guy that was hungry and wanted it. So for AJ Cisco, listen, he's the head coach of a legitimate gym with good guys in the gym. I know he's got a wrestling advantage. I know he's got a grappling advantage. Here's what I would present, though. One fight in the last 5 years, and it looked like a cardio may have been an issue. When you're not in there actively fighting, your timing is off, your rhythm's off, the pressure gets to you, the adrenaline gets to you, you feel that dump. And if at any time any of those things happen against Dusty Little, it's going to be a problem. Because anything else, he's not an athlete, and he's not some big strong guy. He's not a jiu-jitsu champion. He's not a striking marvel by any means, but he's a tough, scrappy kid.
He's game.
He's
Yeah.
totally game. Totally.
Yeah.
Game. He comes to fight. And his cardio, most of his fights end early, but it seems like he could probably go for a little bit because similar to a Nate Diaz and similar to a lot of that touch playing style, they're not loading up on any one strike. He just had a kickboxing match in which he went the distance with a good guy, and that's kind of the narrative on Dusty Little. Dusty Little doesn't fight guys that are 2-15.
Right.
Dusty Little fights the best guys that are possibly presented to him. He loses to Robbie Ring, who's probably going to be in the UFC in the near future and is on the Contender Series coming up. He's fought that Joshua Oxentine. He's 1-1. Dusty Little. Dusty Little's 1-1. He fights a guy that's 7-5, 12 pro fights. Is a current bare knuckle boxing title challenger. Should have got the win as far as I'm concerned. Good fight though, but
Yeah. Dusty
Oxen
hung with it pretty good.
Dusty hangs with him, and then
Yeah.
it's like, oh, I got slammed, and Robbie
Yeah.
caught the neck, and then this Jonathan Davis fight. Jonathan Davis is currently 7-2 as a pro. He's co-main eventing the upcoming Fury FC card on UFC Fight Pass, and is just knocking on the door for his Contender Series spot. He gives him a go. Dusty
Yeah.
Little's landing head kicks. He drops the kid with a short left hook. He throws up a flying triangle that's inches away from cinching it up, and he stuffs 2 takedowns. Who would have thunk the little old Dusty Little, the kid that some promoter pulled out off the streets and said, hey, a kid, you want to jump in there, would actually take it this far? He's got 12 amateur fights, and he's got 5 pro fights, and all of those have come while AJ Cisco's pretty much been on the sideline. He's had 1 fight in 5 years, and Dusty Little's done pretty much all of his work over the last 5 years. So one guy's got a case of, I've been fighting recently. He's dangerous enough because, like you said, he's quirky. He could catch you with a submission. He could catch you with a punch standing. Clearly, he's been working on his takedown defense. And you know what he's good at? He's good at getting his back up against the cage and kind of using the cage to his advantage. He's going to be at a strength disadvantage. He's probably going to be at a technique advantage in the early going. But if he can make Cisco work and drag him into the second round, I could see something slapping up. So call me crazy, but I think I'm gonna. And here's the last thing, just like on a mental warfare thing. You guys staged that little press conference, and I loved it. But the whole time, Dusty's just like, yeah, man, I like to fight good guys because they teach me something. I learned this in that last fight, the heel hook. I learned this against Robbie Ring, the underhook that gives him the Darce choke. Like, here's a guy that's going out there and actively learning through making mistakes. Yeah, you can train in the gym. We didn't learn that in the gym. No, you're going to learn that in a fight, right? Because that's where you're going to be able to experience the most out of it. Real action situations going at 100%. Dusty's kind of seen that, done that. AJ is very dismissive, and I don't know if that's him playing a character or if he truly just believes that this is just a free win, but he's just calling Dusty a cannon. Everybody knows in the room what this is, and I'm Big Show. I'm going to go to the Contender Series with my 3-3 record, 1 fight in the last 5 years, and 33 years old. I know it sounds like I'm disrespecting him, and I don't mean to, but he's disrespecting Dusty the exact same way. Just shits on him like he's not even worthy of him. And Dusty takes it in stride. And I hope Dusty comes in with more self-confidence than he showed in that presser. Because if he does, I think he's a live dog. But he's going to have a hell of a bad first round, make him work, survive some tough spots. And I think you can see this kid pull something off. So live underdog alert. I'll take the shot on Dusty Little.
What do you think about the total? The over 1.5 is, I guess, if it gets to over 1.5, one would think that that underdog's certainly very live at that point. And then if it goes over, I'm saying if it's under, I guess it could go either way potentially. Any lean there on the total? Or pretty tough to call.
Yeah, tough to call because on one hand, if AJ Cisco does win, he probably just rolls him up in the first round, right? So your total's not going to hit an over. You'd be looking better out of under. If Dusty wins, Dusty, again, he likes to finish mostly a lot of his fights early, but finishing AJ Cisco early is also probably not on the table. This entire scenario that I've envisioned is Cisco needs to get tired after a round and a half, and then Dusty Little could take down the stretch, make something happen. So if Little's going to win, if you're backing Little, then I think you're looking at the over. If Cisco wins, meanwhile, and I'll look foolish on it, but I can fully admit, if Cisco wins, he does it early and he looks good because he does have the superior skill set. It's just I would need to see more of him recently before I could go ahead and pull the trigger. And it's not like the guy he lost to 2 years ago, Alan Olivas. He's 2-2 at the time. Was 8-2 now. Pretty good, right? He's on an 8-fight winning streak. Very, very solid prospect. Another guy that you're probably seeing on the Contender Series in the near future. So that was a legitimate guy, but you've seen him struggle there. He prefers to fight the Dusty Littles of the world. And again, when you just look at records, sometimes you fall into a trap. So it's up to Dusty Little to go out there and prove him wrong, prove me right, hopefully. But either way, listen, this is going to be a good fight, and I think both guys stand to win a lot out of a solid victory.
Main event. Lightweight battle. We've got Alex the Trojan Riggs representing Shield Systems in Knoxville. He is 3-4 as a professional, -150. He's the favorite here, and I was a little surprised by this line. He takes on Carter Beekman out of Agogi Combatives. Several Agogi amateurs on this card, but Carter's the only pro on this one. He is 1-0 in his young pro career. He just made his pro debut back in Chattanooga. Like 2 or 3 months ago. It's not been long. Carter coming in fresh off of his pro debut. He did have a little bit of a layoff before that, as he kind of got adjusted to his new team there to Gogi. Carter is the underdog at +125, and then the total is 1.5. The over 1.5 +250. Wow, and the under 1.5. -300. Definitely curious to get your take here. I think that Riggs has shown. Riggs has been in there with some pretty tough guys. He had a nice little run going up until his last fight where he came up on the short end. But that was, I don't know if you got a chance to check it out. It was a fucking awesome 1 round fight. There's a lot of action in that one. He's a guy that will bring the fight to you for better or worse. Beekman, will give up some reach, I think, in length. He is more of a short, compact, muscular guy, but certainly has some pop. So what's your take on this?
Yeah, honestly, this is a really good fight. As you said with Riggs last time out, I mean, what an absolute banger of a fight. Both guys hurt each other multiple times. They're both rocked. They both fall over. And it looks like, oh, Riggs is going to take this one. And it's like, oh, Brent came back. Oh, no. Riggs is taking over again. Brent's
Nope.
back again. Yeah, dude, it was crazy. It was at the Joe, and it was about as much fun as you could have in a less than 5-minute time frame. So I thought it was dope. Here's the problem: is that Brant Cooper was 1-3, and yet Riggs sat right in front of him, played right into his hand. He gave the fans one hell of a performance, a showing, and loses the fight. So now, as a betting favorite, I wouldn't really feel comfortable getting behind him for the most part. And he had been knocked out one time as an amateur, but in 7 pro fights had yet to be knocked out. So, how do you come back from that? He's 30 years old, first pro knockout loss. Kind of a big knockout loss too. I mean, he sustained a whole lot of damage in that spot. And if you're not going to be comfortable with your durability anymore, confident in your ability to take that punch, it's going to pose problems because Riggs is not the prettiest going fighter. It's just he's willing, similar to a Dusty Little in a way. He's very scrappy and he's game. And guys like Scott Holtzman have benefited from having him in the gym because he's a willing training partner, and as such is going to have some of that rub off on him and get better. And he has. But in 15 amateur and pro fights, he's never won 2 fights in a row. Never. An amateur or pro. And I think that's just a lack of consistency. He can win some fights certain times, but for the most part, he's not really leveling up his game and getting to that next level. The guys he wins, the Corey Delaney's of the world, the Robert McCanns of the world, he can pull one over on them. But outside of that, I mean, it's mostly just being scrappy and staying in your opponent's face. Carter Beekman, that style is going to present one of 2 things, right? Either Carter Beekman absolutely knocks him out in the first 2, maybe 3 minutes, or he can break Carter Beekman, tire him out, and take over. But he's going to have to go through hell to get to that high water. And I just don't know if he gets there. Beekman is making some solid improvements, man. He's 26 years old. He's out of a famous team now, out of Agogi that has produced guys like Trevor Peek to the UFC. We can see Torres Finney's about to be on the Contender Series, and then week in and week out. And geez, man, this is Aries. Third show in 3 weeks. Every single card features somebody from Agogi, and they're almost always good. They've really doing something well up there, and I think Beekman is making progress. Won his last 2 amateur fights, turns pro, and then absolutely just smoked that Shifley, that Micah Sheffy guy. Here's my only tad problem. This kid's all action, man. He looks good physically. He looks like he could be a star in the making. He's got all the goods. He reminds me of a very green, young, like a Garrett Gross. Like he fights similar. He'll wait, stand in front of you, loves to unload with those punches. Athletic, drops level, comes over the top. That Sheffy fights, he drops him with the same left hook, rocks him the first time, puts him away the second time. The thing is that everything he does is very explosive. It's very kinetic. It's very fast twitch muscle. So he puts a lot into it. And as an amateur, for the most part, he'd finished a vast majority of his wins inside the first round. He had gone a decision one time, I think, in his last amateur fight with like Jamar Moore. But with 3-minute rounds, it was really only 9 minutes of fighting. And again, it's a fight that I wasn't able to dig up. So I don't really know what he was looking like in the third round, if he was tired or not. But seeing his pro debut, he gets the knockout. He looks really good doing it. But fighting that style, you'd better get that knockout in the first round because eventually I think you're going to tire. It even seemed like he was maybe slowing down just like ever so slightly. Sheffy actually started coming back just like a little bit, and then boom, Beekman just puts him away. So when you've got that kind of power, those kind of muscles, the kid looks like he could be the goods, but he's 1-0 as a pro. He needs to now go out and become 2-0 and 3-0 and just accrue as much, lose a fight, just accrue as much experience as you can. And then I think, yeah, no, he could be the next guy from Agogi to make that big jump up. Riggs, meanwhile, yeah, he's not a fish out of water. Like, he's not completely dead in the spot. It's that he's going to have to take those big shots early. And what I saw in that Brant Cooper fight is that he's standing right in front of him and allowing him to tee off with those overhands. But he kills all the space. He's not fighting at range. He's standing in the pocket, and he's making him work, making him work, making him work. He took some nasty shots. Some of them he's wobbled. He comes back. If he can keep a high work rate up on Beekman, force Beekman to fight in close, force Beekman to throw everything he's got, tire him out, then I think Riggs has got probably the better cardio. He's got way more pro experience. He's been there and done that. He's fought at the Joe. He's headlined at the Joe. He's kind of the more experienced guy that'll pose problems the longer this thing goes. But I just don't know if you want to get punched in the face by Beekman, man. So I feel like I'm going to have to go with the underdog, Carter Beekman. His win condition is the knockout. It's plus 180. I think he would probably chase that. Flip side to that, Riggs probably scores a knockout of his own if he can tire him out and take him down the stretch. But yeah, you guys got a fun fight coming up. Fun fight. And Nashville Underground was all finishes. It looked like could be some decisions on paper, and then they're just, absolute beatings. This looks like absolute beatings. Maybe they're all going to be decisions. Who
Yeah.
knows? That's the beauty of MMA, Tim. But I think you got another live underdog in your main event. I like what I see out of Beekman. I think he could land hands. And for Riggs, that kind of nasty knockout in his last fight definitely makes you think.
Speaking to the coaches of Riggs after this last one, they'd said that, they felt really good going into that fight. They told him that they felt like the only way they could lose that fight is if he stands right in front of him and trades punches with the long, tall Brant Cooper. And well, that's what we got. So it'd be curious to see if one would have to imagine the game plan or what you want to stay away from is the same here. You don't want to stand right in front of Carter Beekman because I would imagine he's got probably more power than Brant did, honestly. So does Riggs take that advice to heart now after learning the hard way last time, or is he just can't help himself? He gets out there and he starts feeling the crowd and he gets in those brawls and he's feeling it, man. He likes to put on a show. So that to me is kind of the question. Will he alter his game plan to one that is a bit more measured and try to drag Beekman into the deep waters, more or less what you said he would need to do, or does he go into in there guns blazing and end up either living or dying by the sword, if you will? Would you say that the over 1.5 at plus 250 would be worth a crack with that kind of return, or too risky?
If you're a Beekman backer, which I'm going to lock it in officially, Carter Beekman, yeah, I don't think it hits that over because, again, they're not going to slug it out for a round and a half before he puts him away. He's got big power. Riggs is going to get hit and he's going to revert to brawling. And that's actually exactly what he did against Cooper. MMA is such a savage sport, right? We're talking about how we just lost to a guy, but they very easily could have knocked him out in the first round. Unfortunately, as soon as he hits him, he goes in for the kill. Now he gets rocked, and it's just like you go back to what you do best. So Beekman will drag that out of him. It's tight confines at the Cotton Eye Joe. Again, it's a live crowd. There's going to be a lot of supporters there. I could see it getting hot and heavy, and then as soon as it does, it's going to be a scrap. In a scrap type situation, again, you want to favor that athleticism, the speed, the power of Beekman. Sorry, but with Riggs, he's got that dog. So if you're backing him, if you're going to bet Riggs, I think you're also looking at that over as a total for sure because he's just going to take Beekman's best shots, drag him out, and then take him out later. If you're going with Beekman, you're probably going to take the under on this one and think that he just goes out there and he knocks him out. But definitely a fight that I'm looking forward to. And again, with Riggs, it just depends on what he wants to do. Like the smartest game plan would probably be try to wrestle early, simply to tire Beekman out, wear on his arms, make him carry your weight up against the cage a little bit. And then in the second round, after a boring first round of holding him up against the cage and tiring him out, then open up. But yeah, dude, that's not how he fights. He fights like, let's put on a show and let's fucking throw down. And that's what he
Yeah.
did last time. And that's likely what he does here. Him doing that would play into Beekman's hands. And at plus 125, win condition knockout plus 180. Twist my arm some more. Why don't you, Tim?
Yeah. Looking at the old PRP here for Cody, if you were to parlay all five of these guys, assuming that I'm right in saying Beekman, the shot on Dusty Little, Mary Rosenbeck, along with Paul Carson, and was the official pick Grady or Douglas?
I'm I think I'm gonna go. Well, okay, I'll tell you what. I'm gonna go with Grady for right now. I'll go Grady for right now, but I have to watch weigh-ins. I have to watch weigh-ins because I just want to check out. Douglas looks like the bigger guy on paper, but all of his fights are at 55, right?
Yeah.
55, 55, 55. Thomas Grady seems to be fighting at all these catch weights of 160. His last fight, he actually missed the 55 limit, came in at 161.1. His fight before that, he was 169 for a welterweight fight. As an amateur, he had fought at catch weight of 160 against that Aziz King, who's actually pretty good for the record.
Mhm.
So he almost always comes in at 160 or up, taking on a natural 55er. So, like, is he going to make weight? Is he
Right.
going to make weight and look real good and look big? Is he going to have a 3.5 pound weight advantage? Like, I don't know. I don't know. But I think I would like to wait until I locked it in over there. But in terms of him being that big of an underdog, if he is the bigger man and he is scrappy, like we said, like, yeah, dude, you can do worse than that.
Yeah, assuming you were to go that way, that five man parlay pays just a hair under plus 4,000. So 40 to 1 just about on a five man is pretty good. Definitely worth throwing a couple bucks on, I'd say. So yeah, we'll see how it all shakes out. Again, that is this Friday night. By the time you're watching this, I guess we could say it's tomorrow, and it is from the world famous Cotton Eye Joe, Knoxville, Tennessee. Catch the action on Spectation Sports. Catch the odds on BetMGM. And of course, get your tickets at fightertix.com. Cody, any parting words?
No, man. Again, very excited for this card. I think some guys are going to show up. Some guys are going to prove me wrong. Hopefully, some guys prove me right. But at the end of the day, you got another fun card. So big props to Spectation Sports. You can watch all the action, obviously, live over there. And then BetMGM putting the odds out. So if you're a resident of Tennessee, go ahead and check that out. And super cool that they're putting that out. So if you're local, you can definitely bet. And even if you're not in the state of Tennessee, they offer
Check it
tons of
out.
other sports. So just check it out because you never know what they're going to have odds up for. And you can play all types of different stuff. Always worth having a look. So thanks to Spectation. Thanks to BetMGM. Of course, thanks to my boy Tim Loy and everybody over at Aries Fight Series.
Hey, this has been Tim Lloyd for Cody Saftic. We'll see you guys next week with another edition of the Zero Hour. Thanks, Cody. We'll see y'all next time.
Will do, sir.